What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's time to take a look at Dragon Age the Veilguard here on the Steam Deck, and the performance here really varies depending on where you're at. It can get pretty rough. We're going to take a look at a few different areas and settings and FSR XESS and talk about all that. We'll also have some GeForce NOW cloud gaming in the video so we can see how that's running as well to help us out here on the Steam Deck. So let's go ahead and get into it. So starting with the settings here, at least we do have 1610 support, 800p full screen. We're not using HDR or anything, though it does look fantastic on the OLED. AMD FSR is what I'm probably going to use in here, but we'll take a look at some more settings in here as well. And then over to our graphics, we're pretty much just going to wind up all low on everything. You could make a few more adjustments, but if I try to bring anything up, performance really does get much worse. There's just a couple of items we can maybe tick off or down one more, but for the most part, this is kind of what I'm stuck with, and it wasn't worth me getting into a bunch of other settings here. So we'll kind of stick with this, get into the upscaling here, starting with FSR. So just standing still here, FSR balanced 32 FPS. Of course, we're not doing anything. There's nothing going on, but it's a good place to take a look here at some differences. If we go to native, we'll come down to 24 FPS, which is, of course, going to put us in the teens easily in some other areas of the game. So you're going to need some kind of upscaling. Quality FSR around 29 to 30 FPS right here. Back to our balanced 32, typical 2 FPS difference between those. And then over to performance, we go up another 2 at 34 FPS. Of course, your image quality and ghosting is going to continue to take a hit there. And then ultra performance bring us up to 38. So depending on where you're at and what you're trying to pull out of the game is going to depend on what you decide you want to do with the upscaling. I kind of stuck with balanced on that. Now, as far as XESS going to ultra performance, we go from that 38 on FSR ultra performance to 35, bouncing 33 here on XESS. It might have a little bit better image quality on those than FSR does, but it does take more of a hit on the FPS. So it's up to you. They're both usable here. XESS balanced here at 29 to 30 versus the 32 over on FSR. And then we'll bounce to quality here, which is going to take us to about 28. So really up to you what you want to do with upscaling FSR or XESS, but you're going to have to use something to help keep the game running decent enough in a lot of different areas. I'm going to use FSR balanced for now for the rest of the video just to show the performance, but you've seen how other stuff is working there and you can decide what you want to do. When you get into combat, of course, or when you get busy, it's going to depend on where you're at in the game. I have seen this run in the 20s and all the way up into the 40s depending on where you're at, but more NPCs, more combat, more effects, obviously more things happening. Performance will vary, but the only good thing here is that even though we do have to play in the 20s sometimes, 30s and 40s others, because the GPU does stay bound, even though the CPU is getting used up a lot as well, our frame times are actually good. There's no frame spikes or dips or stutters, so when you're playing a game this low of FPS and trying to get enough performance out of it to be playable, it certainly helps when you don't have a ton of stutters and dips. Even here in a horrible part of the game where we're 19 and 20 FPS in this area of the city, it's rough, but it isn't like a stuttery mess or a slideshow necessarily or dropping the frames, but it's low frame and 20. But point is, there's two different kind of problems, low frame rate or low frame rate with stutter, and when you don't have stutter, it's a little more playable. The city areas was one of the worst that I had seen. Most areas in combat so far in my first 4 hours of the game run between 27, 28 FPS all the way up to about 40 to 45 depending on where I'm at. You may want to try a 30 FPS cap to smooth some of this out, but you're still going to experience some dips into the 20s or teens depending on where you're at in the game. And I imagine later on it is going to get worse for performance. Now taking a look at GeForce NOW, I'm on the Ultimate 4080 tier, so not too hard for it to run 800p. We're going to have an 800p stream, and the game's going to run at 1200p. It's going to look pretty good on here. We're going to have ultra maxed out graphics with ray tracing and all of that. And it's going to look good and run 60 FPS on the stream and in the game. I've locked that down so it's smoother. We could certainly run much higher FPS. And compared to the local, it is a big difference in graphical quality and even clarity and image quality considering what we have to do to make the game playable on the Steam Deck here. I'm a huge fan of GeForce NOW. If you guys have ever paid attention to me, I used to cover a lot of cloud. I've been bringing some more back to the channel, and I still use it every day. I use cloud gaming from GeForce NOW, Xbox Cloud Gaming, Boosteroid, and all of that. And this works great here on the Steam Deck for games like this that can be really rough. We were about 1920 FPS right here earlier, and we were able to hold about the 60 FPS, and this is with ray tracing, ultra, everything here on GFN, and you could certainly tweak things to your liking or even up the stream resolution and have that kind of downsampled on the 800p Steam Deck. But yeah, ultimately performance for GFN is great. Back to the local Steam Deck here, again, depending on where you're at, is going to depend on what your frame rate's doing and what you consider this game to be as far as playable, but at least it isn't like a stutter fest or dropping a ton of frames and having spikes. It just is very difficult to run here. So see if you guys want to try this out on your Steam Deck or not. I'm going to continue playing through and see how the game is for me. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.